All right, so we're here at the AWSI Show 2024. I'm here with Adrian, co-founder, right, of AXIS.
Yeah.
And we talked last year too, but tell us what's new this year.
So we came out with the Art V2 not that long ago, and that was a development that came out of the Spitfires that we did and the Art Pros. And it's got the same straight median line. It's got the same foil section, a lot of the same characteristics in it, but the key thing that's different about the ART V2 is the taper. It's a 10 aspect, same as the original ART, but it's got a wider chord in the middle and a lot of taper in it. And what that does is it allows the wing to roll over and turn really, really quickly. You can imagine if the wing was really narrow with a great big paddle shape on the end, it would be really hard to push the tip down and make it steer and turn. So that gives you the span, but still allows the wing to turn really, really nicely. So,
interesting. So it's kind of like trying to combine the efficiency of the ART with the kind of turning ability of the Spitfire.
Yep.
Okay.
Just trying to make it, more turny and more fun to ride.
Cool.
It's got less turn down than the original. The original ART had quite a bit of turn down on the tips, and if you breached a tip, it did crash. This one here breaches beautifully and works really well. The straight median line is also a really key feature with all of our foils.
What do you mean by straight median line?
So every foil section, the thickest point of it, that's the thickest point there. It's a dead straight line from one side all the way to the other. So all of the lift is lined up in one line. A lot of wings have a lot of rake in them, and we always thought back in the day that having rake in a wing actually made it turn, from a surfboard idea sort of thing. But the problem is with that is as you start going faster, you've got a bit way back here that's creating lift, and it changes the pitch of the whole foil, so it makes it harder to control.
So you have to have more from the tail.
This one here, the lift is in that point there. Your front foot, back foot are sort of balanced over that, and whether you're going slowly or going quickly, that point doesn't change. So it makes it a lot more balanced
pitch
and
stable, at higher speeds.
Yep, more predictable and easy to ride.
Okay.
So we're also spent a lot of time working this year on the downwind stuff in Hawaii, and this is the new Fireball. This one here, kind of need to explain camber to start it off. So every wing generally has camber in it. Camber is basically the amount of curvature the wing has to create lift. If you cut the wing through there and looked at it from the end, you've got the top surface of a wing, and you've got the bottom surface of the wing. The camber line is a line that's halfway in between those two lines. It's a curve, and the more curved it is, the more lift it has. The flatter it is, the less lift it has. And it's normally described as a percentage of the chord line, which is a straight line. So you've got a dead straight line from the leading edge to the trailing edge, and then above that you've got the camber line, which is inside the foil. You can compare the two, and it's done as a percentage. So if you've got 100 millimeters of chord and it's 2.5 mils to the camber line, that's described as a 2.5% camber. Higher the camber, the more lift, but also the more drag. Very, very high camber wings have got drag, but when you make it 13 aspect ratio, that also cuts the drag away. So end result, we end up with a wing that's got high camber, but very, very narrow, so it's very low in drag. So easy to get up and can still go quite fast on it too. This wing here.
So can you explain the numbers? So this is the wingspan.
We've always done wings by span, but we're sort of doing equal size in the graphics now. The span, the area, and the aspect ratio.
And what's 106?
That's the maximum chord.
Okay, the chord.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So that wing there, that 1000, it's only 773 area. It's got about it's got better bottom end to get up and going than our 1051 Art Pro, and the top end is almost as good as the 951 Art Pro. So the range in it is quite incredible. Per Stanlick.
And then sorry, so that camber line you're talking about, it depends on the curvature of the top and also the curvature of the bottom, right?
It's a line that's halfway between both, and I've really been trying to pass that on because it doesn't seem like anyone's picked up on that. On the bottom of this wing you can see a hollow in the trailing edge here. That's reflex. A lot of people have been calling that camber. That is not camber.
Camber is basically in line inside the
It's a line that you can't even see.
Right,
it's halfway between the top and the bottom, inside of the wing.
Yeah.
Per Stanlick's ridden this wing here. as fast as 143 minutes per kilometre, and as slow as 3 minutes per kilometre on the foil. So the range on that wing is quite incredible. Now, the other thing about this foil section, this higher camber foil section, is it's got kind of more, compared to our foil section we've been using for a few years, it's got more of a nosing down effect. So as you go faster, it wants to nose down. That tipping force actually gives it some stability. So when you're riding, it kind of works differently. Like our other wings, when you pump, you sort of do an oscillating pump. This one here, it's a flat pump. You just tap, tap, tap to pump with it. Mm-hmm. So because of that, it actually suits a longer fuselage and a smaller rear. And we found all of our team riders were riding the very smallest skinny, the 35 skinny that we had. So we figured we'd build some smaller ones. So over here we built a...
What you're talking about now is like the Molokai race?
Yep.
So your team riders were they all on this Fireball wings?
Some were on this.
Okay.
And some, like the twins, actually rode that one there.
Mm-hmm.
So they rode that 880 span, 604 area. Mm-hmm. They actually paddled 63 kg. They paddled that up in dead flat water at Maliko, pumped all the way out to the bumps and rode down the coast. Mm-hmm. And they paired that up.
Amazing. 600 square centimeters.
That's the rear they used with it.
Okay, and this thing is tiny.
So that's over 18 aspect ratio, and the maximum chord on it is 25.
Yeah, it's so.
We built the 30, which is the next one down from the 35 skinny, and figured we needed that, and that was a halfway sensible thing. Yeah, this one we kind of did as a bit of a joke, but it turns out that it works really, really well.
So basically, these all have like almost this, or actually these three have the same.
That's the biggest one in the range, the 55.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these were where we had it down to 35, but from 95 kg all the way to 60 kg, they were all riding this. So we obviously had to do smaller. So this one was built to be smaller, and this one was built just to see.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's really good. Yeah. These two here are actually built from ultra high modulus carbon. You kind of need to be. If it's not ultra high modulus, that it'll be too flexible.
Yeah, and I think you could also chop onions with it, right?
Yeah, or fillet fish. You can fillet a fish with it.
Fillet fish.
Yeah.
Right. Nice. This is crazy. Okay. So and then you said, but to use this, it works well with the slightly longer fuselage.
Yep. So these really small skinnies, they work great with the Fireball, but with the ART not so much. You know, they're slightly bigger rears. I think a lot of people, when they're changing to these Fireballs, I generally say you can go down at least one rear size, maybe two. One more wing first around the back
one
here.
More wing. Okay.
So this is a new old wing in our range. This is the PNG 1300. That was a wing that had been in our range for like 5 years, and it was still regarded as the wing to learn to downwind. Very easy to get up and ride. So we did a refreshed version of that, and it's got the same foil section as the Fireballs. So it's got very, very good lift, and easy to ride. We tried to make something that was better turning and better breaching than the old 1300, but still had the same bottom end to get up and go.
And it also has that reflex, as you call it,
right? Same reflex in the back. It's the same foil section, just a bigger version.
But it's very subtle. Like I was looking at the KT foils earlier, and they have a really strong reflex, I guess. Yeah.
Yep.
So and then I guess the downside of that is you create more lift, but the downside is more drag as well, right?
The higher the camber is, generally more drag, and we looked at a lot of different foil sections, and without building a foil, we can actually we can get this foil here, we can swap it out for a much higher camber foil section, and then we can run simulation and see whether it actually helps with the bottom end, what it does to the top end, what it does to the range, and we can work out where we're going with that. So we don't necessarily need to build. I think it goes the other way around. Yeah. Don't need to build a wing to find out what it does. We've been using that simulation for a long time.
So for me, I'm like 185 pounds for flat water pumping. What
185 pounds?
Yeah, 100. Oh, you mean kilograms? I think it's 80 something, 85 kilograms, something like that.
85 kg.
Yeah.
For downwinding.
More for flat water, like flat water pop-ups and flat water pumping.
So in that race they had yesterday with the foil drives,
right.
you know, most of the guys were riding that one, the 1070.
Okay.
That pumps like mad, and that's got amazing lift. Only 877 area, but it has a lot of lift.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I mean, I just know that for me, like flat water pop-ups is going to be hard to get a small foil like that going, but
no,
maybe not. Yeah,
it's not.
Okay, I got to try it.
Yeah,
Right.
It's amazing how much lift it does have.
And then on that, on a foil that size, would you still recommend going with a really small tail, or like?
It depends on who you are and what you like doing, but I mean, like with a 1070, I would say a 45 or a 40 would be a conservative starting point, and then you just work your way down. Okay. Dylan, he uses the 25 with the 1070, and he uses that for prone surfing, for downwinding, for whatever with that.
Wow.
There's a guy that did the race yesterday. He'd never ridden our foils before, and before the race I gave him a 1070 and a 25 rear, and he just jumped up and he did really well in the racing, but he'd never ridden the foils before. He was fine. So you know, you can ride quite a much smaller rear than you might imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's talk about the other parts of the foil, the fuselage, the mast.
So the fuselages have had a bit of a revamp. What we've done is we've made them a lot thicker through the front section here, which gives a much better connection from the mast to the front wing, having it thicker through there. We've also added a zinc anode in here, and this anode over time will corrode away, and you just take it out and replace it when you need to. But that's,
the idea behind that is that this corrodes instead of the screw holes or whatever.
Yep, it's a sacrificial anode. Right. So we've been doing it on our test ones, and it stops the the chipping around here, and it protects the threads a bit more. It's common. Like if you've got an aluminium boat, you have an anode on it, or an aluminium outboard, or anything that lives in the sea has an anode if it's aluminium. It helps protect that. Yep. The back of the fuselage is wasted away really, really thin through here. And the reason we've done that is that the fuselage doesn't always run dead straight. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, and when you're pumping, it's moving up and down. That rear section there, if it was a big round tube and you push that through the water, there's a lot of drag off a round tube. Having that elliptical section on there, it can pump really easily. So makes it freer for pumping. This one is a Psycho Short, which is a new one that we've added to the range. The Psycho Short, the name should be Fair Warning. It's not for everyone, but it does work really, really well with the giant pump wings. Yeah.
Seems like you keep having to come up with new names for the shorter and shorter fuselages. Yeah.
Well, I would have thought I can't imagine you can go much. That should be enough for anyone.
Yeah, that looks pretty short. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dylan uses that a lot with we've got a prototype 1700 span wing, and he uses that with the 25 rear, and that's his go-to for dock start pump. Very, very low drag, runs really nicely. We also do all of the fuselage pre-lubed with all the screws in, ready to go. So.
And they got a little bag with them too.
Yeah, they come in a bag, and if I get. We've actually included the screws for the mast because the base is a little bit thicker through here, so they need slightly longer screws to attach them. So those are included in the package.
Cool. And then what about the masts?
The mast, we've added a new 72 that was around the back of here. So to our Ultra mast, we've added a smaller one, a 72, and all the guys that were riding Axis and the M2O were on the 72. So even open ocean, this length's working really fine. Just
less drag basically on a shorter foil.
It's being shorter, it makes it stiffer, and it's also very thin. It's only 12.5 mil through here. It has a lot of carbon in it. Like it's 68 layers of carbon in there. If you feel the weight of it, it's not light. And you can't make a really, really, really stiff mast without putting a lot of carbon in it.
It's very thin, yeah.
This is the same foil section that we've got in all of the Ultra masts, and that is very, very fine leading edge, and the wide point's way back here on it, and it's almost a curved trailing edge as it goes into there. And this foil section was supposed to be about 20% less drag, but one thing we found that we didn't anticipate with it is the turning Like we've always thought of the mast as just something that connects the board and the foil. But having this foil section has allowed the foil to turn a lot better in a surfing situation. So a lot of prone riders have liked that foil section.
But what about for like more novice riders? Does it feel like it's too loose?
No, I don't think. I mean, this is the Ultra, and it's hellishly expensive.
Right. It's
so,
not really for beginners.
It's not really, well, unless they can afford it. It's a great mast.
Yeah.
But so are our high modulus power carbon and our normal power carbons as well. This is just the pinnacle of mast.
So the 720 is the preferred one for downwinding, and so what about for surfing, prone surfing?
72 or 800 generally.
And then for winging, or
I use a 900 for winging.
Yeah.
The length of our mast, we actually describe it from the surface of the board to the bottom of the fuselage.
Okay.
So the mast, like if you measure from here, say to here, I don't know, it might be
a bit shorter.
Yeah, it's a bit shorter than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then also, I guess it's, I mean, obviously tapered, but it also has like a bit of a curve here.
There's a bit of a dog leg. We're basically trying to make this top section here as stiff as we possibly can, but the bit that's cutting through the water as narrow as we possibly can, while still maintaining the stiffness.
Yeah, so it just has less drag down here. Okay.
The thickness of the mast gives you your bend stiffness, and the chord, more chord gives you more torsional rigidity.
So down here you have a little bit less of both, basically, but that you basically sacrifice that for speed.
You're trying to get speed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep. And we have the dropouts on all, so you just do 1 1/4 turns and you can just slide the screws out. So very easy to mount it on the board.
Yeah. And then is there, I guess there's something inside too, it's not solid.
It has a little bit of core, but not very much. I mean, when you've got 68 layers of carbon in there, there's not much room for core in there.
And then the way it's laid up in the mold, I guess the carbon wraps around like this.
It wraps all the way around. So the carbon you see on the outside there is actually just a woven carbon cloth. And there's 2 layers of that. Underneath that, the whole entire mast is built from unicarbon. And unidirectional carbon, and we start off with some uni that runs straight up and down the mast, and then we have some 45-45, and then we go back to unis, and then some 45-45 all the way through the mast. And that seems to, we've done a lot of different layout tests and bend tests after, and that gives the best stiffness we can get for torsional and bend.
So they're all either 90 degrees or
90
degrees?
degrees. 90 degrees up and down gives you your side bend stiffness, and the 45-45 gives you your torsional rigidity, and you need both. We've built masts that have been off the scale good in torsional rigidity, but not quite as good in bend, and they don't feel that good. So getting a balance of that is quite tricky. I think side bend is probably the most important, but you also need as much as you can get for torsional.
And obviously the bigger the foil, the more rigidity you need for it, right?
The
wider wingspan.
So the 1700 wingspan pump foil that we've got, that one there, a big span wing like that, you're kind of dreaming if you think you can just stick it on the same old mast. It's a specific situation, and you really need a specific mast that can handle that. Yeah.
And so what do you recommend for a huge wing like that, a big pump?
Working on it.
Okay.
It's not something that, like the 1700 wing we've got, it actually works amazing, really amazing. And we've had quite a few riders have ridden it and said, yep, feels great, really nice for pump, but I think, well, I know because I've done quite a few prototype masts with it, if we can build one that's a whole lot stiffer than that, there is nothing even slightly like that on the market. If we can do that, we will actually be able to get a 1700 wing that can actually carve and turn properly.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's another project.
All right, so let's look at this cool poster here. So I guess you still have all the aluminum masts that kind of has a price point.
Yep.
And then you have Ultra, that's I guess the high-end ones, or Pro, Ultra, Power Carbon. So what's the difference between these?
So these ones here are just made with normal carbon. These are made with high modulus carbon, and these are made with ultra high modulus carbon.
And then so like US dollar retail price about?
Ooh, I don't know prices.
You don't know prices, okay.
These are reasonable. These are getting more expensive. These are outrageous, but worth every cent.
Psycho expensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can show you some things we've got over here that are kind of cool. So this is our 19mm aluminium mast.
This one's 75, it says.
Yep.
Oh, 19mm.
19mm thick.
Yeah.
So it's our standard mast that we've had forever and ever. trying to get this out of the way. Okay, that's our normal 19mm doodad. That goes in and that fits onto our fuselage. We've made some new doodads. So that one there, for example, is a north one. So that fits in there, and then you can bolt your north onto the end of it. That one is for F1. That one's for SAB foil, and we've got Nash, unifoil, code, lift, pretty much every different one.
No mic slab yet?
No.
I have some mic slab for us.
Yeah?
Okay.
I haven't actually checked that one.
They're kind of rare. Yeah.
So these are what we call shoes, and this fits on the end of our that fits on the end of our regular doodad. So that fits on the end of there, and that changes that to a that one is a code, and that's a titanium one, and this one is a is that the right way around? That's a lift one, lift shoe, so it converts.
And then those ones would also work on the carbon mast.
These two work on the carbon. The other ones with the forks, they only work on the aluminium setup. But it's mainly for the foil drive, but just also trying to increase compatibility as much as possible.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And then I guess this is the collaboration with the foil drive to have the cable inside the mast.
That was the first integrated mast on the market with foil drive, and we've also done a carbon one.
We just looked at the one that has it molded into the mast itself. Yeah, that looks expensive.
Yep.
But and then this is obviously just an e-foil, like where you can.
This is dedicated e-foil, but we also do one in various positions
wherever
here
you
as well.
want, basically. Yeah, we just talked to him about that. This is really cool. Okay. What about the board range? You want to show us some boards too?
Sure. This is a new dock start board, and it comes in carbon and it comes in fiberglass. They're both pre-preg construction, so it's pretty much the same construction as the masts and foils. So very, very strong. Also being pre-preg carbon, the resin has a very high HDT, so you can leave that carbon board in the sun and it doesn't blow up and damage and fall apart.
Does it have a PVC foam core, or what kind of core?
You can't use PVC because it's cured at super high temperatures and it would melt that core. It actually has a PET core, CNC cut PET.
But, yeah, that can't take on water though, right?
No, it cannot. It's sealed. So.
And even has foot straps, so I guess you could use it as a tow board or whatever.
It would be good as a little kite board as well.
Kite board?
Yeah.
Okay.
But very, very strong. It's very, very thick at the boxes through here. So as a dock start pump board, it's very, very stiff when you pump, but very, very thin in the front where you don't actually need the thickness.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Very nice.
So there's that. We also have our.
And then this. What is the difference between black and red?
So the black one, the black one's carbon. The red one is actually fiberglass.
Okay.
It's actually got an aluminium strand and some red dye in it to give it that look.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a little bit heavier, and a little bit cheaper.
Okay.
This is one of our prone boards, a 31 litre one. We do these 4.1, 4.3, 4.5 and 4.8. And this is a shape that we've been working on for a few years, and we're building a production run of those now. That's the biggest one there, it's 44 litres. These are great as a prone surfing board, but they have also got the plastic boxes and the breather plug in the deck, so they work really well as a foil drive board as well. Yeah. Okay. No straps.
So why do you need a vent on a foil drive board?
So foil drive, basically it's got a signal that's going into the board through here, and the signal needs to get into the board, and then the signal pings around inside the board, and it needs to come back out again. This is a full carbon board, and without the ability to let the signal out, it would be trapped in there because it doesn't want to go through carbon.
So you have to have plastic boxes and a plastic plug.
Yeah, we also have a little window here in the carbon, and we have the plastic insert there to let it through. It's a breather plug, but it also works as that.
See, they didn't mention that. So I guess if you have a full carbon board or carbon boxes and everything carbon, then the signal doesn't really get through?
No. No,
interesting.
it's not easy. The plastic boxes too, they're set into PVC.
Yeah.
But if you set those in PVC with carbon cloth behind them, there'd be no particular advantage to doing that. But if you did that, it would block the signal as well. So they're not set in with carbon, even though it's a carbon board.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. They're capped over with carbon, but then you cut through it and you're back into plastic.
Right.
So the signal can go through really nicely.
Okay.
So that's the prone boards.
Yep.
We have our foil drive boards. These have been out for a while now, and these are designed to be flatter through this area here where the foil drive sits, so there's no gap on the front of it.
No gap lifting.
Yeah. These have the same window here and the breather plug to let the signal out through the top. They're longer and narrower, specifically designed for foil drive.
Easy start.
Yep. And they come in a 70, 60 and 50 litre from 5 foot to 5'8".
Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
They've been out a while now.
Those are designed for both prone surfing and downwinding kind of thing? Or
they're really just for foil drive, so whatever you want to do with your foil drive. We have had quite a few people using them for surfing, and they've actually been okay for wing as well, but they're specifically designed as a foil drive board.
For foil drive, in terms of volume, do you recommend having a board that floats you, or is it okay if it sinks a little bit?
Seems like that 70 litre is as easy as it gets for people that are learning to do it, but once you've got the hang of it, you quite quickly go down to the 5 foot one. Yeah.
So I guess the signal works even if the board's underwater a little bit?
Pretty much, yeah, as long as you've got a bit poking out, and generally, if you're lying on the board, this bit's out of the water, and if you've got your hand here with your remote there, it's pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. This is our new range of blast boards. This one's 65 litres and it's 5'2" by 20 inches wide. They're a little bit like the foil dry boards. They're narrower and longer, and what that does is it gives you a slightly longer waterline length so that the board moves a bit more quickly to get up onto the foil. Especially with the more high aspect foils, they need a bit more pace to get them up and flying, and these boards just make it a bit easier to do for that. So there's a whole range of those from 55 litres up to 105 litres, and as they go up and down they basically get 1 inch wider, 1 inch longer, so they get kind of big and wide and fat when they're big, and pretty narrow and
then just kind of flat on the bottom, square tail.
Yep.
Little bit of
bevel on the rails. Stop the rails catching.
Simple bottom, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, these look nice, nicely balanced volume.
Yeah.
And then you got a pretty hard rail.
Yep. Nice. They have a PVC deck, so they're nice and solid on the deck there, and they have PVC on the bottom through here as well, so they're nice and solid on the bottom.
Do you have stringers inside the dock?
No, well, sort of stringers. We have a PVC block here, and that comes up to about here, a PVC block. That's 30 mil thick, and then we have 2 PVC stringers on the deck that are 25 mil wide, and they're routed from the deck down until they get to the PVC block, so that basically bonds it top to bottom. So those 2 stringers come up, and then we have the PVC sandwich on top of that, and that PVC sandwich joins up with that, and that's the deck unit that you're standing on. So basically the deck unit is connected to the stringers, which is connected to the PVC blocks to the boxes, so it gives a structure through that part, and the rest of it's just carbon and EPS, so it's light where it needs to be light and solid where it needs to be solid.
Cool.
That also has the even though it's a full carbon board, it has the breather plug in the deck. Also, these foot strap inserts allow the signal to come through as well. So that's got the foil drive ready on it, ready to go.
Cool. All right. Do you use the foil drive a lot yourself?
Yeah, I've got one. I haven't had enough. It's been winter back home in New Zealand, so I haven't really had enough time on it yet. But really keen to get onto it.
Cool. The downwind boards, you want to talk about those?
These are our existing downwind boards. There's a hybrid board I could talk you through there.
Okay.
So this is the 110 litre hybrid board. The hybrid boards, we built a range of them, I guess, a couple of years or so ago now, and it was almost a little bit too early for that type of board on the market. They didn't really take off, and they sat there, and then suddenly a year or so later people discovered hybrid boards, and they all sold in about 2 weeks and they were just gone. So this is a rebuild of that board. Now the idea of these boards is they're a bit longer and a bit narrower, and they've got volume, so you can go out in just about no wind with a really big foil, and it gives you enough projection to get it up on the foil with not too big a wing, and you can get foiling. It's also something you could actually use for subfoiling as well. So it's a crossover somewhere between your full-on downwind board and your normal wing board.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you're winging, you don't really need the length of a downwind board, right? Like you don't need all that length really.
But this is long enough and narrow enough that it does actually get the projection to get going in really light winds.
That looks like a good concept.
Yeah.
And no foot straps on those.
No foot straps, and that's 6'2", 23. Foot straps is a tricky thing because everyone's got their own idea about where they want to stand on the board, and if you put enough inserts in the deck of the board to cover everybody,
then the thing is super heavy, right?
You'd be adding so much weight.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
It has a PVC deck, so if you wanted to retrofit some PVC, some plastic inserts into there, it would be easy enough to do that.
Right.
You know, if you specifically know where you want
to stick on plugs. Yeah. Okay.
And the base shape, it's got very beveled rails. The beveled rails allow the board to sink down in the water, and when it sinks down in the water, that's what gives you the projection to run forward. So
and also allows the board to rock a little bit easier right, when you're pumping.
So if you want to pump the tail up,
and the tail, then the wing boards, the blast boards. Okay.
Yeah. Downwind boards. There's some more stuff coming with that at the moment.
Okay. So you got some new ones coming out.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you like? What's different with the new downwind boards from what you have now?
Well, we've sort of been working with Frank in Maui. I bumped into Frank earlier this year in Maui, and really nice guy. And he was helping me fix some foils, and we gave him a ride on some Axis foils, and he ended up riding those and loving them. And we really love the way he does boards. So he's been shaping boards for quite a few of our team riders. The twins in Perth were riding his boards, and Pace, one of our Axis riders, they were all riding Frank boards. And he's just built one for Dylan, and we've got a few others in the works for other team riders as well. So we're working a bit more with Frank, and I'd like to see more cooperation in the future with that, and maybe a production version built as well. But we're just working through all of that, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Anything else you want to go over?
I think
go back up there too.
Kind of got most of it covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Adrian. You went over a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Cheers.
Appreciate you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
one. Aloha.